Look, if you would have said to me in that deepest, darkest hole, hey, in 20 years or whatever, you're going to be doing all this stuff, I would have said, what drugs are you taking? I didn't even have a future, Daphne, at that point. Really, I didn't think I was going to get out of there.
Today is a dramatic day. And the reason it's a dramatic day, I've got a very dramatic guest, Stephen Gillen. This man has quite a story. It's not a normal story. And the story has to be told in 3 sections: past, present, and future. My name is Daphne Diluce. I'm bringing you the epic story of Stephen Gillen.
Thanks for having me, Daphne. I'm expecting a very, very deep, very exclusive interview today. We're going to go into content that has never before been put out there.
Let's get down to it. Congratulations on becoming an executive producer, an author of 2 books. The first one, Monkey Puzzle Tree. Now, the Monkey Puzzle Tree is based on Stephen's story. It is absolutely thrilling. It's a good read. It'll make you laugh. It'll make you cry. And if you want to know what was happening in the 90s on the crime scene, it's definitely worth diving deep into that book. So congratulations on that one. And I do believe that you first started writing in prison. Is that correct?
I did, yeah. I mean, if you was to ask any innate skills I had, it was I could write and I could speak. I mean, that was it. It goes back to where I was in solitary confinement. I spent about 4 years in solitary confinement, if you put it all together. And we was high security prisoners then. Category A, so that everything was monitored. They'd open the door, there'd be 10 screws there and all this stuff, and it was craziness. So they'd only give us a pencil, a pen, a book, a reading book, paper. That was the start of it for me, because there in that darkness, I could escape. I could be anywhere. I could write, and that's where it started.
So when did people start noticing that you had great talent in your writing skills?
I'd done a first novel, and I was in Wood Hill Special Unit, which was for some of the most dangerous prisoners at that time. And there was a teacher who used to come in. He was quite high. He was a writer and all that kind of stuff. And he said straight away, he said, "Wow," he said, "this is a really high standard." He said, "You can write." That was back then, it was 20 plus years ago.
So now we're talking about your present. So describe a day in July 2022. What is a typical day for you now?
I'm CEO of Raw Media Creative. It's an international digital media branding film TV production house. We build, support, explode brands. We've built and supported over 400 plus successful businesses and brands. That's just to give you an idea of what we do. It's very busy now. We're very privileged. We've worked really hard at our work, become very good at it. We have a wonderful team, and you, Daphne, as well, obviously. So we're privileged now, to be working on unbelievable projects around the world. Some of them are booked to film. I do a lot of executive producing. We have 6, 7 major scripted, non-scripted, semi-scripted TV series and features at different stages of development. Some of them are international offerings. This is apart from my own brand, with my books and my story and other stuff. The Monkey Puzzle Tree is going to be a film. So there's work on my brand as well as everything else. It's very busy. We work with a lot of people in LA and in the States. Busy days, 16-hour days, sometimes. but we're very passionate about what we do and very privileged, Daphne.
What do you do to relax?
Simple stuff, really. You find that where it's so busy that really if you get a chance you need to rest, so you don't want to do the running about, go for walks, love art, love music, any time that we have simple stuff, food, we go to some shows and different stuff. I love music. We don't get that much time, there's a lot of obligation and responsibility at the moment, which, I'm really privileged to have because we're building so much. But the truth is I'm very driven, very good at conquering, doing this stuff, creating all this stuff. But I'm not that good at knowing how to relax and rest and, this kind of thing. I'm getting much better, it has to be said.
So how would you compare a day 20 years ago today? What is the difference in those days?
Look, if you would have said to me in that deepest, darkest hole, hey, in 20 years or whatever, you're going to be doing all this stuff, I would have said, what drugs are you taking? Really. I didn't even have a future, Daphne, at that point, really. I didn't think I was going to get out of there. You can't imagine, how can you imagine what you're going to be like in 10 years of that? If you're even going to survive that, you just can't. The experience now, I've transformed my life. It takes a lot of constant work, discipline, sacrifice and going forward, a lot of being open to learn. I've worked in my life, consistently. This is 14 years in the making now of me, a complete 360 metamorphosis of the person I used to be and the person that I needed to be now to step into my full light.
And I work with you every day, Stephen, so I'm witness to your hard work. Now, in the office and in the studio, there's a few things that Stephen is very famous for. And one of those phrases is, get it done. So tell me about get it done. Where did that come from? Why do you say it? And what does getting it done do for you?
There's one thing I learned, Daphne, it's not hard to see why, is the most precious commodity in life, in our lives, it's not the money and this and that, or even the relationships necessarily, or what we think. It's actually time, because we don't know how much of it we have, and it is going to run out. Now, when I really realized this on a very deep level, because I'd wasted so much of my time, that was big for me. Because when you start to understand that, you understand that every moment, every memory, every choice, everything that we do, who we have in our lives, who we don't have in our lives, is so precious. Then you start to do the right things with the right people. You start to ask the right questions. You start to move forward in your life. So sometimes I think there's too much talking about talking, and meetings about meetings where nothing is done. It's such a waste of life force. I certainly see that in business. So I'm very pragmatic. I'm very concise.
Yes, you certainly are. Another phrase that Stephen says in the office is work works. So tell us about work works. What does that mean for you?
It does, my experience, Daphne, look, when I changed my life, I'd done a lot of voluntary work. I worked for nothing, really. I dug, my family had a business at that time. I dug holes in the road. I was construction. When I started that, I was £70 a day. But I went from that to being a supervisor, to running my own contract, to running my own first business within 18 months. No one never give me anything, right? I had to navigate that through tenacity and pure hard work at getting it done. Because at the end of the day, the only thing that's really tangible in this life is where we translate it to results. Because it's about going forward, right? I've done the backward thing, that's for sure. I was so, and I'm fond of saying, because it's the truth, and this is another part of this question that you've asked me, They say, oh, it's a miracle. Yeah, it's a miracle. Of course it is. It's a miracle I'm even alive. But for me, when I really look at it, I wasn't on the floor. I was 10 foot under the floor. So for me, even to get up to level pegging with normal society, normal people, normal ways of living, to me, that was the greatest miracle, Daphne.
Leadership. What does leadership mean to you, Stephen Gillen?
Leadership is about obligation and duty and responsibility.
Do you think you're good at leadership?
I've had to learn to be good at leadership. I was always a leader of sorts. Of course, there was a lot of things that was out of sync and I was not the person I needed to be. But again, you know, I've had to work, you know, to become that person, you know, and the journey continues.
You're a very serious man. Are you always so serious?
I think life to me, and my life has been very, very serious. And this made me have a filter that really reminds me of that. So I realise when you really get down to it, it is a very serious business, life, right? So this is the way I need to be, and just the way I am, the way I've been forged to be, I suppose.
I spend a lot of time with Stephen Gillen. I would say he's a very serious man. And sometimes he has a touch of sadness, sometimes a touch of remorse, and he's extremely deep. But his seriousness is good. He really focuses on what he does, and of course, not he says get it done, but he gets it done. That's one of the big observations with Stephen Gillen. He definitely gets it done. As for the things that you have done recently, I've noticed that you've interviewed the likes of Shaun Attwood, michaelfranzese, John Alite, Bobby Louise. So what are these guys like, and do you enjoy interviewing other ex-gang bosses and criminals?
Yeah, you know, I've loved interviewing people like Michael Franzese. You know, we're friends, me and Michael. We go back. He's got an unbelievable story. You know, I've interviewed him. He's doing a UK tour at the moment. That's one not to miss. And he brings a lot of experience. He brings a lot of really historic, iconic learnings. You know, of course, he was a capo in the Colombo, New York, La Cosa Nostra family, right? And in a very iconic period, you know. And his father, Sonny Franzese, was a you know, a massive name. He was an underboss, you know. So you think about the you know, the history, you know, the experience, the stories behind something like that. John Alite, you know, the same. He was around the Gottis at a very pivotal period of certainly mafia, organised crime in New York at that time. It was the beginning of the end, really, for the mafia. So you think about all that history as well behind that. Bobby Louise is another one. Shaun Attwood, he's a UK guy, but you know, he's got another unbelievable story. I mean, he was in prison in Colorado, and you know, it goes well back. So all these guys, they bring unbelievable stories and unbelievable learnings, you know, and a lot of the stuff of that life is very similar, but there are differences, you know, and you're always learning more from every story. And of course, you know, for me and my own journey, my own story, it's about looking for solutions. It's about getting their messaging out there, so people would have a much easier run, a much easier life, definitely. That they wouldn't, you know, you can learn by your mistakes, which we need to, but you can be cleverer than that. You can learn by other people's mistakes. This is what the really clever guys do. So here is a medium, here is a way to do that now with the internet and everything that we've got. And I really believe in changing the world for the better. And anything that I can do, you know, towards that is worth doing for me.
So with your film, The Monkey Puzzle Tree, I know there's a lot of busyness of right now pulling that together. What do you want people to take away from your life story made into a feature film?
First thing I wanted about the monkey puzzle tree, and you know you've been on such this long journey with me, is I wanted the authenticity of it. So it got to the truth, right? Because believe you me, there's enough there for people again to be taken on that journey, learn the lessons, of course be entertained and all this stuff, but there's a lot more stuff going on there, you know, behind the scenes, and there's a lot of lessons in my life that I'm very privileged to people, you know, and I get so many messages, you know that. So many, you know, people around the world saying, hey, I was in a dark place, but you know, you've really helped me see stuff and turn my life around. This is some of the stuff makes my heart sing the most. You know, it lets me know I'm going in the right direction. You know that, so we keep going.
Well, I'd like to tell everybody about what I have personally been working on with Stephen since I met him, and that is his redemption arc. This is very important for him. And actually, there are many people out there that are on their own redemption arc journey. And I love the shape of the arc. So you can start off in a dark place, get lighter, 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 till you get the stellar effect. And this is, you could say, the hero's journey. But we're storytellers at heart, but we like to tell good stories, true stories, inspiring stories, and most importantly, real, authentic stories. But not stories that are made up. They also say that life is stranger than fiction. Would you agree with that? So, Stephen, what is the funniest thing that ever happened to you in prison?
There was so many, you know, so many. And I can remember they built Woodhill Special Unit. It was £15 million they spent on that. There was all kinds of stuff. I was based on Colorado, Marion, the states have got that's coming out of a side of a mountain, you know, the worst of the worst and all that. Charles Bronson was 7th one selected there. I was 8th. I went just after him. So it's four units on there, and it's, you know, it's a very dark place. But it was there's like a prison within a prison. So it was very psychologist led. And if you behave yourself, you get a bit more. If you don't, you go down. So I went up, down, down, up, down. I was there for 2 years. Most people went there, they didn't leave there. Because the kind of people they was dealing with, where they was in their journey was, you know, these are the militant, you know, we're the hardcore here, you know, it's do or die, right? So it was a crazy place. So you had to see psychologists in there. So of course, you know, I know the best way there is to say nothing, because, you know, they're writing all kinds of stuff up, and they're like, you know, they're making a narrative in there, like you're being studied like a plant. So I wouldn't talk, and then one day I thought, okay, I know what I'm going to do. I go in there, she's in there with the glasses, and she's doing all the thing, you know, and I said, I'm glad you're here today. She's like that, wow, it speaks, you know. I said, I'm glad you're here today. I said, I really want to talk to you. She's like that. I said, I can remember I had a really bad time. Just like that. Oh, well, getting somewhere here now. I took 60 paracetamol, I said. Just go. I said, but there's one thing about that. I said, I just have to tell you. I said, after that, I never ever had a headache again. And it was the funniest thing. She looked at me for a moment. I put her in so much, right, Daphne? And then it switched her, and this is a psychologist, right? It's switched in her head. She said, oh. Anyway, it was just so funny, because it was madness in there. You know, that's one story that comes to mind, but there were many. That's a personal story.
Well, thank you for sharing that. So everybody, thank you so much for joining us and being a part of our interview. And to us, it really matters that you're there and that you're hearing our stories and hearing all about Stephen Gillen's past, present and future. And why is that? It's because he's got great stories to tell, and stories to tell where you can learn from, be inspired from, and always go to a better place, do better, be better, and have better. And that's important in this day and age because we're in very, very interesting times. So Stephen Gillen, with my research today on where he is in his past, present, future, he seems to be a very alive man, happy man, busy man, intense man, and so much more. So do join me for the next part, Stephen Gillen's future.